All right, rock and roll. Welcome one, welcome all to the Scorched Earth Political Podcast. I am your host, John. And if you could, please hit that like and subscribe button. It means a lot to us. We're getting more and more subscribers every day. I do appreciate your comments. Friend or foe, it doesn't really matter. I have so much overwhelming support. It is amazing. It really touches my heart. It makes me feel like I'm not talking to you, that I am one of us. I am just the voice for this beautiful community, and I do deeply appreciate your comments because they expand what I want to talk about, what I feel like our community is really interested in. And let's get to it. Let's burn it all to the ground. And the Washington Post story on Friday about the Venezuelan boat strikes, and let's be very, very clear here. We don't know for a fact, because I did some research, we do not know for a fact that this boat came out of Venezuela. This boat on September 2nd was off the coast of Trinidad. Now, contrary to what the White House said, that it was in international waters, that does not seem to be true. It was within the 200-mile coastline of Trinidad, which makes that their sovereign waters. But the White House, when you're going to tell a million lies, you might as well just add one more to it, right? So on September 2nd, the military launched a military strike on, how many times can I say military in one sentence? We're going to set a record here, on this boat. There was 11 people on the boat. Let's take the first thing here. Everybody I saw, and I probably saw 3 or 4 podcasts on this. I read BBC, New York Times, Washington Post, that typically drug boats don't have 11 people on them. They have like 2 or 3, and all they're trying to do is keep the weight down so that their fuel can get as far as they can. Because this just in, you don't want to run out of fuel in the middle of the ocean. Duh. But there was 11 people on there. The military strike, first one, took out 9, killed 9 with the first one. Through satellite imagery, we saw 2 people survived. This is according to the Washington Post. Then Admiral Bradley ordered a second strike to kill, let's call it murder. Let's straight out. You're not probably hearing that a lot, but I'm going to call it murder. Forget the killed. It's kind of like, when in the Epstein files, all these tools out there say, well, these were young ladies. No, they were girls. They were girls. These people, these 2 survivors on this boat, on the first strike, were murdered. And Admiral Bradley gave the directive. Now, this was supposedly in enforcing Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, his no survivors policy. And that really sounds, first of all, we're talking about literally the most incompetent defense secretary this nation has ever had. We don't need to go too much farther than the Signal chat in February, where he included a journalist in the plans to launch armed conflict actions against the Houthis in Yemen. Hey, nothing like including the world to your little Signal chat. But so after this was disclosed, Donald Trump said, I don't think Pig would do that. Pete, he said Pete. I don't think Pete Hegseth would do that. Well, you're going to keep doubling down on dumb, but that's what it is. Then, very interesting thing came out of the White House from Carolyn Levitt. And remember, you cannot spell out lie without Levitt. She said, Hegseth, this is the quote, didn't give the verbal order to kill everybody. I notice one thing, because I get a lot of comments from MAGA. They do the nuance. We're dealing with an administration that literally says 100 bold-faced lies each and every effing day. And then they want to just do that's a pronoun versus an adverb versus a verb versus a subjective noun. I don't really give an F what your iambic pentameter is. When she says he didn't verbally, let's key on verbally. Maybe he was in the room with Admiral Bradley and Bradley looked at him and said, do we strike? And he nodded his head, or he gave him the thumbs up, or, whatever. Maybe he couldn't give the thumbs up because his head was wedged so firmly up Donald Trump's ass, he couldn't do that. But when she says verbally, that to me is the go of he gave the order, he just didn't say yes. Okay? He did his little smirk, maybe he tipped his gin glass a little different. Then she said, Carolyn Levitt, terrorist groups are subject to lethal targeting in accordance with the laws of war. Holy whoa. When did we go to war? When did Congress actually declare a declaration of war? In my lifetime, we went to war against Afghanistan and also Iraq. And those actions were approved by Congress because Congress has the ultimate War Powers Act. Back in the day, when FDR went to war against the Axis powers, Congress had to approve it. Of course, it was actually pretty easy after the Pearl Harbor bombing. But Congress has not given this action. This administration is arbitrarily and capriciously doing it on their own. I guess they think they can just auto-pen it, executive order ourselves into military strikes. Also, this is the irony, and I don't think this is getting highlighted enough. Maybe it is, and I'm just not seeing it. The reason we are going after these Venezuelan fishing boats is because this is, quote unquote, a war on drugs. Okay? This is supposedly some national emergency. And that is why we have to launch into action like, Batman, Kung Fu, whatever we're doing. But in the same week that this report came out, Donald Trump pardoned the ex-president of Honduras, who literally was Tony Montana from Scarface. This dude was a drug lord. This dude had constant contact in making cocaine routes through the country of Honduras to Mexico to El Chapo. He gave $1 million bribes to be able to keep those drug routes going. And then, of course, under the great Joe Biden, he was brought to the United States and given 45 years. Well, that doesn't really last long under the Trump administration because, hey, this week he pardoned him. So on one count, we're going after Venezuela for supposedly bringing drugs to the United States. But then Donald Trump, with the other side of his face, says we're going to pardon the modern day Tony Montana for his drug grievances, his drug crimes. We actually have conviction. 12 jurors convicted the ex-president of Honduras for cocaine smuggling and trafficking. But that's not good enough for Donald Trump. The same 12 individuals that form a jury that convicted him of all those financial felonies over a year ago in Manhattan. But we digress. Make the story here. Oh, well, let's tell what the real story is. Venezuela sits on over 1 trillion barrels of oil, and it does seem like Donald Trump wants to get his greedy little hands on them. Also, Donald Trump keeps hinting that we are going to launch an invasion into Venezuela. Okay, let's say that comes to fruition, and I'm just throwing things out there. We're going to get on land. And we all know, you're obviously smart enough to understand this, that when you launch a war, it doesn't go very quickly. I mean, I remember when we went into Iraq, Dick Cheney said in a year, they'll be hailing us as victors and saviors and liberators. Well, 12 years later, we walked out humiliated and defeated. Because what happens is once you get into the country, it becomes very difficult. This just in, the enemy doesn't put a bullseye on their chest and say, shoot me. Okay? But the thing that I'm really interested in is, let's say we go in, and this is going to be a deeper dive that you're not going to really hear too many other places. We're going to go into Venezuela. We are going to need the help of the indigenous people. Okay? That's not a slur. It's we need help from Venezuelans. Okay? Just hold on here a second. I know it's getting insanely boring. But if we go in there, this is exactly what happened in Afghanistan. When we launched the war in Afghanistan back in 02, 03, in that range, we needed help from Afghanis to help us with logistics, language issues, understanding the surveillance and the needs of what was going on in the local communities and in the territories. Well, last week, an Afghani collaborator who helped the United States Special Forces came over on the Afghan asylum program. And basically that was because if he stayed there, the Taliban was going to execute him, his family, and everybody he effing knew. So Joe Biden created a plan. He brought them over for safe haven, and they went through the process. Now, fast forward in, I believe, April of this year or May of this year, Donald Trump, that administration approved his asylum in America permanently. Now, he traveled, he had a psychotic breakdown. He traveled from Washington State to Washington, D.C., and shot 2 National Guards. Now, in the rant afterwards, Donald Trump claims that he is going to thoroughly look at all of these people under this asylum program and that he is going to stop immigration and all that. But let's concentrate on what's going on with the Afghanistan situation. There is approximately 3,000 to 5,000. We couldn't really get a real number. I looked at a couple places and it was kind of vague, but somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 Afghanis who helped American forces in that war for 18 years were brought to America. Now all their paperwork is going to be re-examined, and let's be sincerely honest, a lot of them are going to get deported. They are going to get executed. They are going to get killed on the tarmac when they land in Kabul. Here's where I'm going with this. Is people in Venezuela are looking at that right now, and they're thinking to themselves, if the United States comes in here and I help, I'm a dead man. This increases the resistance from the local people against any type of incursion we make into that land. I'm not saying we were welcome in Afghanistan, but we probably had some goodwill among the people, and they said, we can help America, America will take care of us. Well, Venezuela's looking at it. Those people are saying, if we help America, they will not have our back. They will not, if we are in trouble, they will not allow us to go over there with asylum. Trump is defeating himself this week. And we all know how stupid he is, but Jesus, man, I don't know what his, he talks about he's not about war, but boy, he sure likes the trappings of war. He likes to be able to order these strikes and kill innocent people. And make no mistake, if these people truly weren't innocent, why doesn't he bring them into a court of law in the United States for being drug runners? We did it under El Chapo. We did it for the Honduras ex-president. Oh, wait. That was under Joe Biden. Sorry, my bad. I was talking about a president who actually advocated and enforced the rule of law in America. Yeah, long time ago. All right, I'm going to talk about another story, and literally it's a firestorm each and every day under this administration. So this week, in the last 7 days, let's put it that way, Donald Trump pardoned former CEO David Gentile. Now, I didn't know who this cat was, but in May of this year, he was convicted of defrauding over 10,000 American investors of their hard-earned money in an elaborate Ponzi scheme. Think about Bernie Madoff. And what this gentleman did is he worked on this scheme for years. He was the mastermind, he was the perpetuator, and he was the beneficiary, let's get that one straight, of this incredible fraud. And what he did is, like I said, just like Bernie Madoff, he said, I'm getting this amazing amount of returns. People were eager to get some type of very substantial return on money they invested. And what he would do is he would take in the new money, kind of pay part of it out to the old money, and keep doing that. Well, eventually the problem with that, as Bernie Madoff found out, is the new money dries up. And the old money is taking way too much. And basically what happened was the money ran out. The new investors ran out, and he got caught. The security, SEC, which is kind of fickle to begin with, and then Doge even cut it even more, found he had perpetrated this scam. They convicted him. He had to serve, I believe, 7 years. He was served 7 years. And he was sentenced to 7 years, excuse me. And he pocketed $1.6 billion. He lived a lavish lifestyle on the receipts of these hard-earned money from American citizens and investors. So he went to jail. He actually, Once again, a billionaire. He gets sentenced in May, doesn't have to go to jail till November. Started serving a sentence 12 days ago. Donald Trump pardons him. 12 days. 12 days for $1.6 billion. And because he's a buddy of Donald Trump, that's it. That's the end of the case. And it's like, how do you look these Americans? You talk about you care about Americans. 10,000 Americans got defrauded. I saw, and we've all seen, how many people, how many entities got devastated by Bernie Madoff. And personally, I am not pro-death penalty, but let me tell you something. You could take these Wall Street people, and we should put them on a Venezuelan fishing boat and just nuke them, bomb them, because I got no love. Let me tell you something. This system is set up where if some black kid in the ghetto shoots somebody and kills them, he's up on the death penalty. But some Wall Street mother effer who steals billions of dollars from us, do some time in jail. Don't worry about it. We got your back. You can hang out there at Club Fed with Ghislaine Maxwell. That's where people get so fed up, because the rich, because of their money, because of their access, because of their political contributions, get a system that we do not get. It's like the story I did the other day about Senator Jim Justice. He had to pay back, his back taxes from 2009. Like you and I could get away with that. And that's where the frustration really starts to manifest itself with the middle class, the whatever class, the white collar. Let's call it all we're all white collar. And we sit here and we go, God, the billionaires, it doesn't matter what they do. They can steal, they can lie, they can cheat, and there is no adjudication. There is no penalty. And the Trump administration just keeps feeding this and makes it easier and easier for them to avoid any consequences for their illegal and criminal behavior. And it is disgusting. And we know that. And that is really where the frustration comes in. I guess this week, because of all the boat strikes, really, if we go back 1 year ago, did we have this insanity each and every day under the Biden administration? My Lord, no, we didn't. It was just calm running the government. Okay, yeah, inflation's up, prices are up. Okay, I get it. But my gosh, we were not collaborating, enabling, and actually committing war crimes each and every day. We were not allowing billionaires to go free from stealing billions of dollars from American people. My Lord. And I know when I start going into this criminality of the Trump administration, that's really when I get a lot of the MAGA comments, and they say, oh, Joe Biden did it too. And no, Joe Biden let the Department of Justice go after his only son. They came to a plea agreement, then it was withdrawn. And yeah, at the end of his administration, he pardoned his kid, because Donald Trump, after he was elected, said, yeah, I'm going to go after him. I don't blame him. I do not blame Joe at all. Obviously, nobody in Trump's inner circle is getting brought up on charges by the DOJ. Really funny. All right, I got one final thing to talk about. And I am a fallen Catholic. I grew up Catholic. Went to Catholic school. I was an altar boy. Thank goodness I was not molested. That's kind of why I fell away from the church, is because I think that they did not do enough to disclose the pedophile priests that existed in their midst. But that's another story for another time. It's a beautiful religion. My personal belief is I'm spiritual. If you believe in something and it makes you happy, I don't care if it's believing Jesus, Allah, Jehovah, whatever it is, you do you. I think that's beautiful. It brings you happiness. It brings you peace. It makes you a better person. God love you. Allah love you. Whatever. I'm cool with it, right? But we have an American Pope, and that's Pope Leo. And today, on Monday, he was en route to Lebanon. And on the plane, the papal plane, he said that he thought the only true resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict was a Palestinian state. And hallelujah. Thank you, Pope Leo, for saying what we all know. This is the only way to bring any equanimity, any humanity, any peace to the beautiful people of Gaza. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu is adamantly against it. Little fun fact, when Israel as a country, officially recognized country, goes after a territory like Gaza, it's actually called an armed conflict. It's not a war. Thus, you're less likely to be susceptible to war crimes charges. Now, we know we don't have to worry about the United States with Donald Trump and his war crimes against Venezuela, and also Benjamin Netanyahu and his war crimes against Iran, Syria, Yemen, Gaza, because they both have left the ICC, International Criminal Court, which adjudicates war crimes. Okay, nobody's going in there to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu. But I congratulate Pope Leo for literally being the strongest voice we have heard. I will say President Macron, Starmer of the UK have both advocated for a Palestinian statehood, but it's kind of, they're tepid. They don't want to mess with the United States. And Pope Leo actually seems like the one world figure who is actually standing up to this Donald Trump, Benjamin Netanyahu cabal. And this is the cabal that Benjamin Netanyahu needs so he can stay out of court. And like I said yesterday, and I know I caught a lot of flack for it, just give him the pardon, because by giving him the pardon, we're probably going to save 100,000 people in Gaza. And it makes me sick that that criminal is going to get away with his corruption. But if 100,000 people, 100,000 kids, 100,000 women get to see another year or 2 years on this life and this earth, because he pulls off the dogs of war, he allows food, he allows humanitarian aid, he allows medical supplies into the Gaza region, I don't care. And it's the bigger picture. And that's really what it's all about. All right, that's it for today. If you could, please hit that like and subscribe button. It means a lot to us. And we'll see you soon on the Scorched Earth Political Podcast.